Hey everyone. All right, so we're about to get started in just a couple minutes. I know it's right on the hour. We'll just wait for a few others to join. Thank you for hopping on today. How are you doing? How's everything going? I don't know what everyone can see. This is my first time using Crowdcast. You guys have to let me know if the recording's good, if you can see me, if I sound okay. So hopefully this is gonna work. It seemed like a pretty good tool. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in. And so welcome to the Kickstart Your Wellness newsletter webinar. I hope you guys enjoy this little workshop. We're going to be going over a couple of things, and I'll dive into those in a minute and actually just start sharing my screen. But I wanted to personally welcome you and thank you for joining. And if you have any questions along the way, just feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. So the first half is really going to be about, setting up your email, why you might want to use email, and then also diving into MailChimp, which is the tool that we're going to be focusing on today, and talking a little bit about how to use it. And then at the end, we'll have time for additional questions, or anything that might be on your mind, or other topics down the road that maybe we didn't get to and that you would want to talk about in the future. All right, so let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see this, see my screen here. Okay, looks like, whoa. Okay, I don't know what's happening there. All right, let me know if, let's see. It's like the infinity loop. All right, let me try something else really quickly. Let's share this guy. Okay, let me know if you guys can see that. So you should see a banner that says Kickstart Your Wellness newsletter. So we'll be walking through that. And let's dive in. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, or this is our first time meeting, my name is Erin. I am helping, my goal, why I'm here, I would love to be able to help and support those of you who are working in the wellness space. As you know, obviously that's a pretty big spectrum of different things, but I want to help you guys succeed online and to reach your goals for things you want to build, whether it's a website or a blog or an email newsletter in this case. So I have a background in e-commerce. I was building big e-commerce websites for a digital agency for a while and decided that corporate life was not for me. I wasn't serving people the way I wanted to and helping them and supporting them. So I left the corporate world and I'm doing more freelance, more creative, focused design projects and collaborating with a lot of cool individuals and organizations. And I love that I can now be here for you guys and support you guys. You'll see, I just wanted to share, I love this green hat that I have on in this photo. It's become a sort of creative mindset for me. I love to wear it when I'm going on walks in the morning or, thinking through problems or things I'm working on, creative problems and otherwise. But anyway, just a fun little tidbit. Okay, so before we dive into talking about email marketing, as you're expanding your own business, I think, or just your organization, however you choose to look at it, I think it's really important that you look at this as you are the artist. So you'll find a lot of business new, personalities or people on Instagram or people on different podcasts and everything will tell you, these are the 10 things you have to do for success or to expand your email list by millions of people or do these things. And I think those techniques are definitely worth listening to and absorbing, but you should definitely remember at the end of the day, this is your creation, whatever it might be, whether it's yoga, whether it's nutrition, whether it's art, it's your creation. So what this webinar, what this workshop is going to go over is a tool that you can choose to incorporate into your palette or into your artistic tool set is a good way that I like to look at it as well. So, we're going to be going through a couple step-by-step things, something very tactical so you can leave the webinar with, thinking through designing and sending potentially your first email. But just remember as you're going through this, there's no wrong or right way to do it. It's just a matter of exploring, experiencing, and finding something that feels good for you. There's no formula that says you have to send 20 emails and that's, that's success. And we learned a lot of that through different methodologies that I think we all studied through nutrition and yoga. And it's just about finding something that works for you personally. So think about it this way. This is a tool. This is like, Michelangelo learning sculpture or painting, and then he's deciding this is what I'm going to do for success. Something like that. So just something to keep in mind as we go through this process together. So by the end of this workshop, there's a couple of things I'd love to have you walk away with that are hopefully you'll find super helpful. One of those is being able to understand if email marketing is right for you and your community, your audience. So the people you want to connect with, is email something that they're receptive to, that, you're listening to them and they're telling you, maybe this is how I'd like to hear from you, or that they're more responsive from it. And again, it's all just, especially if you're just starting out, it's all a matter of experimentation and things like that. So the other thing is understanding what email service options are available to you. So we're going to go through a couple different email service providers. Those are just the tools that you would use. For example, MailChimp is one, and that's the one we'll be focusing on today, but there are plenty others that you could consider down the road or and could look into as well. We'll also talk a little bit about growing your subscriber list and how the list factors into this and why it's important, as well as different types of email you might want to send. We'll start, for the purpose of this class today, just focusing on a very simple newsletter where you're either sending an update or sharing a new product or a new event that you have. We'll also talk about then scheduling and sending, as well as a few other little tidbits. So feel free to take notes. I'll be sending this whole recap out to you, so you'll get this whole video of us during the course now, as well as a quick reference kind of workbook that you can refer back to while you're planning and designing and creating your own emails. Okay, so why email? And I think as we live in this age of Instagram and we live in I feel like email feels a little bit ancient to some people, or it just feels like I get too many emails, I never read them, I'm getting bombarded by all these different brands. And that's true. Email can very easily become noise if you're not keeping it authentic and real and meaningful for the people that you're sending it to. So a few reasons that I really like email, it's personal. So with all of your followers on Instagram, I think email is able to take it a step further so that the people that have subscribed to your list, they want to hear from you. If they've come to your website or they've signed up with a registration form or come to your studio and said, yes, I'd love to hear more from you, and they've kind of signed up on the live sheet, that they're looking for information from you. And that's I think followers, while amazing and a great outlet and important on Instagram, I think they're a little bit more fluid than email in the sense of like people following and unfollowing and moving, and there's a lot there. So email can be really personal. The other thing is it's not influenced by an algorithm. So that's another thing sort of related to Instagram, that Instagram's algorithm changes. I don't know if you've noticed like people on Instagram saying things like, oh, the algorithm changed again. And that can be frustrating if you have something really exciting to share with people, that you're sort of beholden to this algorithm. So that's something that email is very concrete, sort of you send it and they read it, and again, you're inviting them into your space. So your email is something that you're crafting for them. You're immersing them, I think, at a deeper level than an Instagram post, even though, again, I think those are super important, and like stories as well. But an email allows you to let them in and then inform them or inspire them or have them, interact with you or connect with you at a deeper level than just saying, hey, click on my link in bio or swipe up, any of those things. So that's a few reasons why I think email is super relevant still and super important. It's again that like you've met them, let's say maybe through Instagram, and now through email, you're connecting with them digitally. Obviously I believe, and I think a lot of others, in person is probably the deepest way you can connect with somebody, but through other means, calls, texting, and then there's email, and then perhaps Instagram, at least in my opinion. Okay, so thinking about how to get started with email. If this is something that's totally new to you and you're like, I'm so overwhelmed, there's plenty of advice out there, again, about how many you should send, when should you send it, what's the right time, all of those things. I think just very basically consider it like you're sending somebody a letter, you want to tell them about some exciting news you have, again, an event or something you've created or built or shared. And I would say when it comes to email, think about it like the golden rule, especially when you think about how often you send and what you're sending. Is this something that you would want to receive in your inbox? Is this something that you would get excited about sending? I know that I've had plenty of people, businesses or marketing gurus kind of send me emails every day or every other day, and it's not too long before I unsubscribe from them just because I feel exhausted from the amount of information. And I think it's good to, and again, this is all about finding what's right for you. So depending on what you're sharing, maybe every day does make sense. But it's really about thinking, what would I want to receive if I were the one, getting this note. Also, it's important in that same vein, I guess, to know yourself. So what are you what will you commit to? Is this something where you don't want to say, I'm going to send an email every day, and then you realize, I have a part-time job, I have a full-time job, I have to do this and this, and then you're not able to stick with that. It's way better for your community when building it that you're a reliable face and voice and, person that they can come to for advice and support. And so if you decide, and I think it's always better to plan less and then build on that. So, it's a lot better to say, I'm going to only send one email a month, and it's going to have a recap of all of my events and activities that are either upcoming or things I've done that I'm really proud of. And then if you want, you can build from there. And it's just, in terms of setting expectations, you want to make sure you don't go through this process of like, I'm going to send 20 emails and then, or, start it off really fast and then it kind of putters out because it can require a lot of energy to put emails together and to do them in a way that feels really good. So definitely quality over quantity, especially when you're just starting out. And starting small. So when you're putting your first emails together, and we're going to do that together, don't feel overwhelmed like you need to put a ton of information in there. Just keep it really simple and keep it, easy for people to connect with. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. With any time you're going through a new tool, it's better to make the mistakes earlier on. And I think we've all gotten emails from companies that have quickly followed something they've sent, or people when they've been like, oops, I forgot to include the link, or oops, this didn't work. I think people are really understanding of that, and it's not something to fret too much over. The best thing is that you're getting the experience and you're learning the tool and getting more comfortable with it so that you are able to continue to kind of at a deeper level expand and support your community. And then be you. So don't feel the need to force yourself into any sort of template or, these are I read an article about like the best headlines to write for emails. These are the catchiest ones. So just keep it authentic to you and how, again, going back to that idea of the golden rule. So this is what I would like to receive as from an email. Oh, okay. Hitting the next one. Okay, so getting more into the technical pieces, we're going to talk just briefly about email service providers and why it's super important to have them versus just, I think a common question is, hey, couldn't I just send an email to everyone, my mailing list or people that I have in my inbox from Gmail or something like that? And, depending on the amount of people you're sending to, you could, but there is a lot greater benefit to using an email service provider like MailChimp. And a few of those reasons are, let me just see here. A couple of those reasons are, as your subscriber list grows, it gets easier to manage the people on your list. And, whether that means grouping them by, I know that this person has signed up for my email from a workshop I did, or I know that this person is really interested in my recipes. So that becomes easier to do over time. And segmentation is a really great helpful tool when it comes to emails. We're not going to get into that during this lesson or this workshop, but if you have questions about that, let me know. I definitely think if you are just getting started and just to get from zero to launch, let's say, it's easier to add on to that later, but that's a helpful tool. It's also better to use an email service provider because you're less likely to get flagged to go into a spam box of somebody that you're sending to. That's because a lot of the email service providers like MailChimp and ConvertKit are whitelisted. So services like Gmail and services like Outlook and all of those, they know that if you're sending an email from MailChimp, they know, okay, this is a whitelisted, which just means that versus a blacklisted label, which means, okay, this is likely not spam. So those are a couple options. There are definitely exceptions. MailChimp isn't perfect, and there's some nuances occasionally. We'll talk about those in a little bit, but that's another great reason. And then also down the road, understanding from an analytics perspective, sometimes people are into that type of stuff at different levels, and that's totally fine. But using an email service provider allows you to see, oh, a lot of people clicked on this link, about a story of this recipe that I wrote or this yoga practice that I put together. So you can see what people are interacting with most, and that will help you to create more of it because you're creating something that they want, and you can then further support them and help them in that way. So we're going to focus on MailChimp for today, and the reason for that is I think I included ConvertKit, which is another service that I've heard great things about. I don't use it personally, but that's another option to look into. I really like MailChimp because they have a great supportive tool set, and they're free up to, I think it's 10,000 subscribers. So you can use them for free. So you can send emails out and do all that stuff without having to pay anything. And then ultimately, when you hit a certain threshold, there will be a monthly fee. But just something to consider. And I think that MailChimp's a really great place to start and start to get familiar with the different email service provider tools. All right, and again, if there are any questions along the way, feel free to pop them into the chat and we'll get to those. Let's see. Or if you're having trouble with any of the video. But okay, so now here's the fun part. If you want to follow along with me, or just we can kind of do this together if you'd like, we're going to set up and send an email. So there's really 3 basic steps, and we'll go through each of these in a little more detail, but there's 3 basic parts to an email. One is you have to have a list. So your list is all of your subscribers. Generally, I recommend using one master list. We'll talk about why. And you can have multiple. There's no rule against it, but my recommendation is just to start with one. And once we have a list, then we can create the campaign. So that's the actual email we're going to send, and we'll talk about adding font and adding images and designs and what limitations in some cases emails have when it comes to design. And then 3 is we're going to send it. So we'll walk through all of the steps together in MailChimp, and we'll talk about scheduling and then sending. So if you want, we can do this together. If you just want to get everything set up and not actually send it, you can play along with that too. If you don't yet have a MailChimp account, we can feel free to set one up while we're going through this process, or check out the recording and you can set it up after and follow along. Oops. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, yes, so create a list, craft our email, schedule, and send. These will be our steps here. Okay, so lists. Your list is what we talked about this a little bit earlier, but your list is your tribe. So your list are the people that have taken that extra effort to say, I really want to hear from you. Please send me information about what you're doing, what's going on, tell me more. And one thing that's kind of, I tried to illustrate it here with this image, so we'll dive into that a little bit. But when it comes to your list, and this is why I think it's important to focus on one, you don't grow your list by sending email. So in the funnel of things, you can grow your list through your Instagram account, through Facebook posts, through images or recipes or things you post on Pinterest, through events you have, through your website, and through your studio. There's plenty of other avenues, but you take all of those social media avenues and you tell people, hey, if you want to hear more from me, or you want to get, involved at a deeper level, or learn about my upcoming workshops, or stay in tune to what's going on, using those platforms is what will help you to grow your list. So from there, people will sign up for your email. They might also get on your subscriber list through, let's say, a single event you have, and by signing up, they're agreeing to say, yeah, this is cool, let me sign up and you can tell me more about other things going on. So for now, you'll see that everything is focused around one list, and I think the benefit of that is multiple lists can get confusing, and we'll see in MailChimp, if you have multiple lists, you just run the risk of potentially having either duplicate people signed up, or it'll just become a little bit harder to manage over time. As your list expands, you'll want to use the tools that MailChimp and other service providers have that will allow you to group people into specific groups. So if you know that someone really wants to just read your recipes and they're not so much into yoga, or vice versa, you're able to identify your subscribers in that way, and you're able to send emails that are targeted just to them. Again, that's a little bit more advanced, so that's something we can cover in a future webinar if you guys are interested or want to hear more about that. But that's the reason for having just one master list to start. Okay, and then when it comes to your list, you can import and add subscribers. We'll do an example of that. And basically, for the most part, your subscribers to your list will sign up using a sign-up form either on your website or a sign-up form that you link to from your Instagram page or anything like that. And then you could also upload a file that has a list of people who, for example, let's say they came into your studio and signed up during your class, then you could add them to your list from there. So by signing up manually, they've consented to join your subscriber list, as well as importing, or I did that backwards. So you can also like manually type in an email if someone said to you on Instagram like, hey, can you, or message you and was like, hey, can you add me to your mailing list? I'd love to hear more. You could do it that way as well. And then the last thing is just keeping your list clean. So if you've created your list, this probably isn't something you have to do for, at the moment. It could be something you do down the road. But if you have created a list, and let's say it's been a couple years, you've been, growing, expanding, you've been doing all these cool things, and people have been joining in. And at some point, I don't know if you've ever seen some of these, but you want to make sure that the people who are on your list are the people who want to hear from you. So sometimes people, and the reason for that is ultimately if you're, if you have this great retreat coming up, you want the people that you're sending your email to actually sign up for your retreat. And so those are the people who want to, they're part of your tribe. So the ones that are, your fans excited about all the things you're doing. So every now and again, it's good to sort of send out an email. This maybe sounds counterintuitive, but I think that this is the best way to make sure that the people who are on your list are the people who are really going to sign up for things and support you and, buy your classes and join your events. But you can send an email that says, hey, just wanted to make sure, we can work on the words, but just to say, hey, I'm working on keeping my email list clean, and I'm putting this on the spot, which is why we're working on all of the copywriting here. But just to say, I would love to have you here. I wanted to make sure you want to be here and want to be enjoying all of this goodness with us. Feel free to unsubscribe. Like I'm here to support you, and I'm here to do the work that I'm doing for you, and I want to make sure you're feeling like you're getting value out of that. Something like that. You definitely don't have to send an email like that. I know that how counterintuitive that might sound, but I would just say, that's super important. You want, again, the quality over quantity. You could have 5,000 newsletter subscribers, but it's not going to help you if only 50 of them are really at that point where they're ready to, purchase, or they're ready to sign up for a workshop, something like that. Okay, so let's dive into the list. So if you don't have a MailChimp account, let me see if I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Figure out how to do that. Okay. So if you haven't signed up for MailChimp, you can go to their, hold on a second. Okay, you can go to MailChimp.com, go to their login page, and either, if you haven't done so yet, click on Create an Account and sign up for your MailChimp account. It's totally free. I will post the link here in the chat. If you guys don't have an account yet, if you do have an account, feel free to log in. So we'll go ahead and log in together here. I'm signing in. I'm signing in for another email list. This is an online store. So you can see that we just have one list lit here. So if you already have your list created, then you can just follow along the next few steps. If you are creating your list, feel free to follow along if you've just created an account. So we'll go over here to where it says create list. And again, the only reason I'm doing this is for demonstration purposes. Because I have a master list already, I don't need to necessarily create another list. So, and even MailChimp says this. They're like, hey, you can use tags instead of a list. But just for this purpose, I wanted to make sure we walk through all of the items that you know, so that you know what you need to create your list. So the first thing is a list name. I would recommend calling this your master list, or whatever you want to call it, the list. The people on your list won't see this name. Oh, sorry, this one they will see your name. This name. So you can call it workshop, or you can call it your company. You can call it function of well. You could call it whatever your company name is. You can make that the list name here. Then you'll want to include the reply email address. So if someone were to receive your newsletter and they were to hit reply on the newsletter, this is the email address they'd see. So in my case, I would add erin@mworkshop.co, because that's how I want people to contact me. This could be an info email. So maybe I also have info@mworkshop.co. Totally up to you. The from name is going to be what people will see in the headline of your email. So it would be, sometimes you see people's names. So it could be Erin from M Workshop, or it could just say M Workshop, or it could just say Erin. So this is something that it's not your email address specifically, but it's the name of the sender. So that's what people will see there. Then this piece you should include. So this is just a reminder to people, and they have this listed in some of the email templates, but it's just a way to tell people how they got onto your list. So if they receive an email from you, this note will say, hey, you're receiving this email because you signed up for my newsletter on my website. It can be pretty generic. For the most part, it's, you have, I think I often write, you're receiving this email because, you've opted in to receive, more information about what we're up to. You can make it very friendly, very it doesn't have to be anything formal, is I think the important part. And then the last piece, this is important, you definitely need to include an address. So this should be your business address. It could be your studio address. This is something that people will see in your email. And the reason for this, I know there's a lot of hesitation about this. If you have like a PO box, it has to be a real address that you can receive mail to. And the reason for this is for spam laws. It's basically so that legally they know you're sending email, you're a real person, you're a real organization, and you're not a robot that's trying to jam, bad code or bad things into people's computers. So that's the purpose of the address, and you'll have to include this. It's really important to include this as a piece. So just something to know, you won't be able to send an email with any email service provider without providing some sort of a business address. If you're an independent, like let's say you're a yoga instructor and you do private classes, but you also teach at a studio, ask your studio, depending on what they're looking for, what they are, if you could use their address to include here, just as an option, because that might be something that is a little more comfortable. You're not sharing your home address with the world, which I think is definitely not something I would recommend doing, but you definitely need this for legal reasons. Okay, and then there are some other form settings, so we'll walk through these together. Enable double opt-in. So this is, you've seen this on some websites. Basically, this means if someone puts in their email address and signs up to join your newsletter, they'll get another email from MailChimp that basically says, we're just confirming that you wanted to sign up for this newsletter. So that's that. And then in the email, they'll click confirm, and then they'll be signed up. This is totally optional. I think when you do this, there's less likelihood that the people who have subscribed will end up, your emails will end up in their spam box, or it reduces the risk of that because they're confirming through their email that, yes, I want to receive emails from this person. So that's something to consider. Sometimes people don't include those because they feel it's like additional steps, additional friction between me communicating with you, but I think it's a good practice. I would recommend doing it. And the people that are really excited to hear you know, your amazing creative stories and adventures and things will, you know, take the effort to click a button, I think. So that's that. Enabled GDPR fields. So we'll talk about this briefly. The worksheet that you'll get after this webinar will have more information, but GDPR is basically this is something that has come into effect as of last fall, but has to do with protecting your data, and this mostly affects our friends over in Europe, but it has to do with the type of information that we're capturing, or you know, that we have about our customers and people on our mailing lists and in our sort of marketing sphere online. And it's really just meant to protect them and safeguard them. You know, if you have clients or people that you work with in Europe, I would recommend turning these on. I think it's really important. You want to be very transparent about what you're doing with people on your mailing list. That list is something that's really just meant for you, and it's not necessarily something you should be, you know, you're not sharing that with anybody or anything like that. So I would say to enable this if it makes sense. It does add a couple additional fields onto some of your newsletter forms. And again, if you have questions about this along the way, let me know. But I would be pretty mindful and respectful of the GDPR protocol, especially if you're working with people in Europe, or you know, your website is open to people, or you have a bit of a following there as well. And then the last thing is notifications. So this is going to be MailChimp sending you an update, you as the list owner, that says this is how many people have subscribed today or unsubscribed from your newsletter. So you have a couple of options here. You can get a daily summary. So every day they're going to say, you know, 3 people signed up, 1% unsubscribed, things like that. And then otherwise you can do one by one. So they'll send you, every time someone signs up, you'll get an email that's like, so-and-so signed up for your newsletter. So once you have all of those things filled in, just go ahead and click save, and then you'll have the list. So I'm actually going to create a list. Kickstart your wellness newsletter. Because of privacy rules, I'm not going to show the list that we have, so we'll do this all together. Default from email, so we'll do shop.com. Well, you are receiving this email because you signed up for our newsletter or purchased a product from our store. Again, this can be very simple and very easy. And then we have the email, we have the address listed. You can always edit this. We'll do these opt-in fields, and we'll just do a daily summary. And click save. So now we have a new list. So once you've created your list, you'll see, basically it should look like this. It says you have no contacts. So there's a couple things that you can do to get started. One of these is to import or add contacts. So that's what we'll do today. We can briefly touch on the sign-up forms at the end if you have questions, but for now, we'll just add a subscriber. So we'll walk through this together. So I will add myself. If you know people, like existing clients that you have, or people who have already, you're already sending notifications to or have given you their consent, I think that's the most important thing, then you can add them here. So in this case, I guess I'll show this at the end. I'm not going to add my, basically all you have to add, and you can tell by this little asterisk here, is the email address. If you know their first and last name, great. I'm not going to add my address or anything like that. And I'm going to add a tag. You might not use these, but it's good to get in the habit of doing it. And so in this case, I'm going to just add webinar so that, and you can create as many tags as you want. You can always edit them. So when you get to this checkbox, if this is someone who, you feel very confidently that they're a client of yours and they've consented to basically receiving email from you, then you can check this box, and this is going to say, they have given me their permission. I can refer back. I know that I can send them emails. If you don't, then leave this unchecked, and what's going to happen is that opt-in. So MailChimp's going to send an email that says, I'm going to confirm that this person gave me permission to email them. So you can leave that unchecked, and then you can just, what this does is, let's say that someone's given you their contact information or you're needing to update it. What this is going to do is, if they already have a record, so their email address already exists in your list, it's going to update that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit subscribe. I'm just going to do this, but that's the step-by-step process for that. All right, so I have one person on my newsletter for now, and that's the best place to start. You just need one. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is get started with campaigns. So if I go back here, we'll get started with the campaign. So diving into these, I guess I'll just talk through this a little bit. Whenever you're crafting a new email, it's really important to understand what's the goal of the email. So are you informing them of something? Are you sharing a blog post? Are you making a big announcement? Are you trying to tell them about a big event? So that's something that you're going to want to think through ahead of time. So these two tabs you'll see up in MailChimp, you'll see one that says templates and one that says campaigns. And I think at first this could potentially feel a little bit confusing, but once you get the hang of it, consider the templates are like a cookie cutter. So it's just the shape. It's like the snowman or the star, and then the campaigns are the actual cookies you cut out, and every decoration on the cookies can be very different. So that's the easiest way that I can describe these two. So we're going to use a template that I've created, but when you create a template, I would create them based on the type of information you want to share, so that people know, when I get this email, this is the layout that I want to share when I'm, sharing with them new products that we have or a new blog post. So the look and feel is the same. Let's go back, so save and exit. We'll get into the editor in a little bit. But we either make it an announcement email or a blog post. Let's say you just have one. And you only need one to get started. Again, we're gonna keep it really simple for now. And they have some for you to use as a base. So if you hit create template, you'll see that they have a whole bunch of different options. I would start in this layouts tab and just pick one of these options to get you going. This has some filler text, and we're going to do this together in a minute, but just pick one of these featured tabs to get started and send it out. There's no need to get too crazy until you get comfortable with trying to get it all fancy or anything set up like that. So let's go ahead and create an actual email. So to get started, we're going to go to the campaigns tab in the top left, and we're going to hit create campaign. So once you create campaign, you'll see that they give you a whole bunch of options here. For now, I wouldn't worry about any of these four and just stick with email. So we're going to create an email. Again, you'll see they have some other options that are available here, but I would just start with regular because we're just going to send out a simple campaign. We can dive into these other ones later if you'd like or want to know more. But for now, we're just going to create a campaign name. And this is the campaign name. So we'll just confirm, because I think this is what I was confusing it with before. This is a name that only you are going to see. This isn't something that your customers or the people on your list are going to see. So in this case, you know, we can add a date. Sometimes that's helpful. I would try to keep the naming convention to something that is, you know, you can go back and look at it, because this is where you'll see all the information that says, oh, this campaign went out to this many people. This is, you know, this is what people clicked on. So you might want to remember this is when you sent it out. All right, and so from there, we're going to follow these steps to build out our actual email copy. So the first thing is to add recipients. And so the reason why we created a list first is because when you choose who your recipients are, you want to make sure that you're choosing the list here. And so the next piece, and again, this is something you can add to later, but by default, it's going to send it to everyone on your list. But down the road, you can either you can choose a specific tag that you've associated with a group of people. So it's only going to be sent to people on your list who have the tag webinar or have the tag recipe, you know, associated with their the list or with their name. So we'll just do this for now. I think to start, let's just do all subscribers on the list. We'll keep it very simple. Personalize the to field. I would leave this open for now, but down the road, if you know, in terms of like keeping your list clean or knowing what the information in your list, you have the ability to include something in your email that's like, hey, so-and-so, or dear, and then includes the person's name. But that's only going to work if you have their name in your list. So if people just sign up with their email address, you most likely won't have their name. So if you tried to include that in your newsletter, it would just show up blank. So just something to consider. I would leave this blank for now, but it is an option available down the road. And there's tons of videos and things online you can look into if that's something you're interested in doing as well. So we've created our list. This is who the email is going to show up from. So this is the name that's going to show up in the email, and then this is the email address that people are going to reply to if they have questions or notes about the email itself. The next thing is to create the subject line. So a few notes about the subject line. I would try to keep them short and sweet. You'll see a lot of notes around clickbait, around like, you know, having the craftiest subject. You know, obviously you want it to be intriguing. You want it to be something that people are excited to click on, and you don't want it to be too long because it'll likely get cut off in a mobile browser. We'll talk about that when we test it out in a couple minutes. So, you know, we just want to say, I'll just write, thanks for joining. Or it can say, check out the recap. That's probably a stronger subject line because it's asking people to do some form of an action. You know, if you have a retreat, maybe it's join me in, you know, in this amazing, you know, place somewhere in the world, or let's, you know, something kind of that's inspiring them to act in some way, that's saying, you know, feel better with this recipe. So that's something that you'll want to consider too. Obviously, you know, your voice is the best one, so do something that sounds authentic to you and doesn't feel gimmicky or from a template. So we have a subject line. The preview text is totally up to you. Oh, and you can also include little emojis. They have these options, so I know you can probably see them sometimes. They have these little emojis there. The other thing is the preview text. So if you have, you know, we recorded the live webinar just for you, something like that. That's going to show up, you know, if you look at your email, you'll see that as a subtext below the email header itself. If you leave this blank, that's totally fine. It's just going to pick up the first line of text in your email. So we have that. And then once you save kind of the basics, so that's why we had to create the list first. We knew who we were sending it to. Now we can actually design the email. So if you click on design the email, you're going to see something like this. So a couple options. If you have templates that you've created, like these two, you can select that, and that's going to be your starting point. So that's going to be a lot faster for you if you've already updated and included like your brand colors or images, or you've set certain fonts. So that's the benefit of having a template. So this is like our star cookie cutter, so you could just use that again. I think for this one, just to get started, feel free to completely skip the worrying about a template at all. Create your campaign, and then here we go. We'll just start with sharing a story or a follow-up. Let's do this. So we'll select follow-up. So you want to click on it, and then you see the editor here. Let me just check something. Okay, so then you see the editor here. So in the header, these are all of the elements that you can edit. And so just to give you a little bit of context, this is the name of your email. This is your campaign name. So this is the internal one that only you're going to see. Then we have, you'll see preview and test over here. We'll do that in a moment when we'll show ourselves kind of what this looks like and how to test it. You can save as a template. So this is a really helpful tool if you're creating your first campaign and you go through the effort of adding a logo, creating the header, adding another photo, adding some text, changing the button color. If you go through that effort, you can save that whole setup as a template so that you can use it again next time. You don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel, so to speak. And then, if you are starting to work on this, you're not really ready to send it yet, you can always save and exit and come back to it later. The right-hand side over here, these are all of the blocks of content that you can add to your email. So they have a couple things here by default. If you decide, I don't really want this block, you can do a couple things. You can delete it. There's this little trash bin. You can duplicate it. That's the box here. You can edit what's inside it. And then this grid will allow you to click, looking for the dictionary, you can click and drag things around here. So that's available to you. Let's delete this, not the button. Let's delete this block. And we're gonna add a box text. So this is basically text with a background color. So in order to add this or any of these blocks here, or maybe a social share, we can click and drag it. And you wanna move it to wherever you want it within the editor. So drop the block there. And here you go. This is gonna send to your Facebook page, and you can edit the text that shows next to it. Or you can allow them to forward to a friend, and then they have a number of other services you can add. So I'm going to say that looks great. I might want to change the style here. Let's see. It says, what else? There's a couple of things you can change. You can change the color, for example. The colors mostly work in hex codes. So if you have colors that you use on your website, or you don't know the hex code or you know the RGB code, these are kind of all different numbers. There's a great website. I'll include the name of this. It's called Converting Colors. And if you don't know the hex code for any colors that you use on your site, you can use this website called Converting Colors, and you can just paste the hex code or the RGB code, and that will help you find it. Okay, so we'll update the colors. I won't do that now because I'm running a little bit out of time here for everybody. I don't want to keep you, but let's go. So we'll add a logo. I have already uploaded a number of different images and such. So I'll use my logo here. Let's see. We'll add a background image, and then we'll add our logo. So by adding the background image, I clicked on the image post. Then here I'll click edit. So by clicking the edit, you're always going to have this parallel So anytime you click edit, you're not going to edit directly on the text itself here. You're going to edit in here on the text. So we'll go ahead and update our logo. We'll replace that with, let's see, this might not. So we'll have our logo there. We can modify our copy. So you can edit the text here, change it to thanks for joining. And then in the style, update the font, size, colors, etc. Add a photo. We'll just toss in a photo here. So in these My Files, anytime you upload an image, so it could be for, you know, the email you're creating now or from a past email, all of your uploaded photos will be stored in this My Files folder. So you'll always have access to them. You won't need to, you know, re-send them or anything like that. So I've uploaded this photo. MailChimp is really good at letting you know, whether the sizes are too big and making sure that your email isn't going to be too slow for people to load. So we'll just save this. Oh, I have to resize it. Let's see, square. I usually make them 800. At 800, I'll save it. The reason that it gets mad is, again, when your email is getting sent, it takes a lot of energy for the system to send it out and load it, and you don't want it to sort of crash people's emails, or it won't load properly. It'll just have that little image block on it, and you want to make sure that the image comes through very clearly and things like that. So I think this is looking good for now. Again, this is just a sample. So I think we're ready to preview and test. So once you have all of the things included that you want to add, we'll go ahead and do preview and test. So there's a couple things you can do. You see a few options here. One is enter preview mode. So this is going to say, okay, this is what your email is going to look like in someone's inbox. This is the subject, things like that. This is what it'll look like on mobile for somebody, so you can check that out. I always recommend checking it in, like sending a test email, so that'll be the next thing we do. In your test email, we'll go ahead and send it to my inbox here. And so that's just going to show me what it's going to look like for someone else. So in that test email, and then the last thing you can do is, there's a couple options. You can send a link to mobile, which I would recommend doing so you can see what it'll look like on your mobile device. All of these are really good tools. So when you're ready to send it, let's see, save and close. So we've created our content. Oh, it's telling me to edit and remove the placeholder text, which I will do so we can send this. Hope this is helpful. Talk to everyone. All right. So we've got that, and so I see the checks, so we're ready to go. I'm going to check on my email to make sure that it came through and is looking good. I will share it with everybody. Just a second. Okay. Alrighty, so I can see that the email came in. Let me just share this here. So this is the test. You can see it'll have the word test in front of it, and then you'll see that the email is loading. I might decide to change the image or use a smaller image because you could see that it took a little while to load, but this is the name. This is, if everything's looking good and all my links are working, that's super important. You can, then hit send. So we'll do that in a minute, but just to take a second to dive into what the email looks like here. Notice that the mailing address is showing up. So that's, again, why that's important. There is a link, so encourage people, especially if you're growing your email list or this is something new, encourage people to add this email to their address book, just to avoid it, going into a spam folder or anything. And then you'll always see that there is an unsubscribe option for your emails. And that is a legal requirement. Anyone has to be able to unsubscribe. You can't force people to get your emails, but I think it's a great way just to show too that people, again, want to be receiving your emails and things like that. And there's usually, I think Gmail has this new feature where the unsubscribe option's at the top. But so that's a couple things to note. I would also check this email out on your phone in mobile, so make sure it looks good there. And let's go ahead and send it. So I want to take you all the way through the process, just so that you have that. So we're ready to send. So you have a couple things. Number one, they do give you a link to you can create a live link to the email itself. So if anyone was like, hey, I didn't get the email, or if you want to show them a sample of what your emails would look like, this is a great link to send. So this, check out the recap. That's just the subject. You can change this to be whatever you'd like it to be. And then you can share that email with people further. You can also, post the email newsletter to Facebook or Instagram, things like that. But so now we're ready to send it. You have a couple options. You see the send options are up here. So you can either schedule it for later or send it right now. We're going to send it right now, but just to see what you have available to you, you can decide, okay, I want this to go out tomorrow at, 2 o'clock. The time, I would say, is something you'll learn over time. Feel free, I usually think maybe in the morning is a good option. Fridays aren't usually a great day, but that's just from my own experience. And you'll learn the more you do it, what are the best days to send it and the best times. So I don't believe that there's a formula for that. A lot of places I think say that there is. I think the formula is stay consistent with sending your emails and, find a time that works. Did you notice that you sent one out in the afternoon and one in the morning and more people open the morning one, and try that again and just keep it fun and keep it an experiment, things like that. The rest of these are paid features, so I don't usually use them, but set the time and schedule and then hit schedule campaign. So MailChimp will send this for you automatically. So if you want to send out a newsletter, but you're going to be on vacation or you're going to be out traveling somewhere, then scheduling is a really good option. If you are like, I'm ready to go, then just hit send. They have this fun little animation. We're going to send it. And then you just, make sure everything's looking good. And then you just hit send now. So we're good. We sent the newsletter, and it should be arriving in my inbox. And ultimately, when you take a look at it, you'll see the name of it. This will show the date that you sent it, how many people you sent it to, as well as the number of opens and the number of clicks. And you can always drill down into more of a report then as well. And so that's just helpful. So that is the bulk of the tutorial. Let me just go back and share my little thing here. So this was our email design. The other thing that's just important to note really quick is about fonts and images. So again, images can't be too large, and it's you probably won't be able to do custom fonts within your email. That's more of a limitation to the email itself. So you'll want to pick a font that is really close to the one you have on your site. The reason for that is usually load time and speed and making sure that the email client, so like Gmail, for example, or Outlook, can read it and display it to people. So that's the important thing with that. Again, double checking your links. This is our little send piece. And I think that's it. We did talk about spam, GDPR, and needing to have, you know, the unsubscribe link that comes out of the box with MailChimp, so you don't have to worry about adding that. And then obviously have fun with it. Like I think I was just saying a lot of things, and you know, I know this went by potentially really fast, but we'll get this, you guys will all get this recap in your inbox, and it'll be available to you along with notes and some step-by-step instruction that will come along probably early tomorrow morning, if not later today. But yeah, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. If it was, let me know in the chat, or, you know, send me a note. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions at all, I'm more than happy to stick around and answer them for you. But that's it. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining again. And we'll talk to you really soon. Happy sending. I'd love to, I'll send you my email. Please put me on your mailing list. I would love to see what you guys come up with and what you start to share with everybody. All right, take care. Bye.